Welcome to the Welsh Yogi Podcast.
Hi Krishna, so this is the final and ultimate episode of the extra Bhagavad Gita series.
Yeah.
Well done for getting this far. I hope you're enjoying the course, or some of these podcasts have been of some value. Today's episode, we're going to focus on the conclusion of the Gita. There's a few things that will be covered in the lesson. What I'd like to focus on in this podcast is the conclusion, because those of you who have been attentive while reading the Bhagavad Gita have noticed that Srila Prabhupada, who translates this version of the Bhagavad Gita, which is commonly known as Bhagavad Gita as it is, it's the most authoritative and widely accepted version of the Gita, and it's the one that's taught in most major universities. Srila Prabhupada, throughout the Gita, he highlights the conclusion of the Gita all the way through. The conclusion of the Gita is to surrender one's heart to Krishna, the Supreme Person. At the end of the Gita, then Krishna says, you've heard all this to Arjuna, so he says, now do what you wish. He also says, if you haven't understood anything, then ask any questions, and Krishna was ready to explain the whole Gita again if his student needed to. So, famous verse in this chapter is Sarva Dharma Prityaja Mamekam Saranam Vraja Ham Tvam Sarva Pabibhyo Mukshishyami Ma Suchaha. Krishna says, just surrender everything to me, give up all kinds of dharma. Basically he says, I've gone through a lot in this Bhagavad Gita. I've gone through a lot of different types of yoga, different types of work, fruitive results, but forget it all and just surrender to me. Surrender to Krishna.
Sharanam.
Yeah, this is the real Masu Jahan. Don't worry about anything. Just surrender to me.
Yeah, you got nothing to fear.
Yeah. In the middle few chapters, the benefit of being a devotee of Krishna is described, where one goes to the spiritual world, for example. One gets above the modes of material nature. The bliss one experiences in that relationship with Krishna is there's no higher goal, Krishna explains at the end of the 6th chapter. So when one fully understands the Bhagavad Gita, if you've enjoyed the course and understood what is being presented, where one realizes, okay, Krishna is the soul of my soul, and I should ultimately develop my relationship with Krishna, then there's Srimad Bhagavatam, which goes into more details about the specific activities and lifestyle and what to do as a devotee, how the relationship works between the living entity and Krishna, the dynamics and the flavors of that relationship, and how to even go further, more advanced in spiritual life. But Bhagavad Gita is definitely the ABCs, and the conclusion is to surrender to Krishna.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.
Hare Krishna.
No, but it's like the conclusion of the Gita is surrender to Krishna, and you have nothing to fear. But it's pretty much impossible for someone to just throw their hands up in the air and say, I know I can count on you. You know that song?
I think so.
Anyway, sorry, rubbish joke. But the idea is it's difficult to actually surrender to Krishna, right? And that's why this path of Sharanagati, you heard that? Sharanagati is like the path of surrender is actually like a gradual process in reality. Because we have so many different attachments and so many different things that we are sort of bound to this world, this material world by. Yeah. That Bhakti Yoga is the path of gradually surrendering various things like that, isn't it? It's like one of those, like you go on those little hunts and it sends you a clue.
Treasure hunt.
Yeah, like it goes, like you need to go to this tree, and then on that tree there's a clue saying go to this lake, and then you go to the lake and there's another clue, and you go clue to clue to clue to clue, So like that's the process of surrender, is a bit like that.
Yeah, it's a good point. I've also heard another example of, like, when you invest in something, So you might invest in a certain company or stocks. When you might not invest all of your money, but if you invest a portion, then and you see a big return, then that'll build your faith, and you think, okay, I'll invest a bit more money, and then you get even more of a return. So then gradually your faith increases, and you say, okay, I'll give all my money, and you get a big return. So similarly, with this word surrender, which means to give, by giving Krishna a little bit, you'll get some return, and that'll inspire you to give a bit more. And that's spiritual life goes on like that. One gets inspiration and encouragement the more one gives themselves to the process.
As those surrender to me, I will reward them accordingly, and everyone is following my path in all respects. So we're all actually on the path of surrender in one way or another. Some of us are further along the path than others, but ultimately, people who are completely not surrendered, Krishna will reward them accordingly to that level of surrender. So they'll be more bound by the material energy, and they'll probably be more fearful as well, in one sense. But those who are surrendered, the more surrendered you are, the more fearless you become. Yeah. According to...
And give it it's like you get like a busy road. A child, if he's holding on to the hand of his father, the father will walk him across the busy road, and the child will feel no fear because he's being looked after. So similarly, surrendering to Krishna means that Krishna completely takes care of us. He takes care of our lives. That's what he means by Masuchaha. Or he also says that I will deliver you from all sinful reactions, don't worry. One doesn't have to worry about performing any karma. One doesn't have to worry about the reactions that one will get from previous sinful activity. Krishna completely takes care of the devotee. He wraps his arms around the devotee and helps us advance in spiritual life. And this is the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. If you really study the Bhagavad Gita, that does become apparent. This is the perfection of the yoga process, as Krishna says, yoginam api sarvesham. He also says, Vedaschar sarvam aham vedyaho. Krishna is very clear that this is the goal of all the Vedas. This is the end of knowledge, is self-realization in relationship to the Supreme, which is Krishna. Supreme attractive, as it talks about in the introduction, Prabhupada highlights the different kinds of spiritual relationships one can have with the Supreme. And in that relationship with Krishna, Prabhupada says one eternally increases in beauty, love, pleasure, like that.
Jai.
So that was the conclusion. If you have any questions, then we're always available to answer. I think that's quite a short podcast.
Hare Krishna.
Madhashikshana Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Madhashikshana Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda